All right, let me know when we're good.
You should be. I'm just trying to confirm. Just waiting for the
Hmm,
refresh
Looking
live
for
logo, and there it is, and we are live.
good morning, Vietnam. I wanted to do that because Zach, I don't know if you're aware. I'm pretty confident this is the first ever episode of the Paisan Sports podcast being broadcasted in the morning.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. We used to, when we first started doing the podcast, we had that Thursday afternoon schedule. So we used to do
Yeah, it was
2 to
like 2 o'clock,
3 o'clock.
I think.
Yeah, it was like somewhere between 2 to 4 o'clock ish range. Now we kind of fluctuate because we're both a little bit busy, but I actually was excited. To be honest, I hate doing it like late in the week and pushing it back because then it feels like the other podcasts get pushed back even further too. But I was excited that we were doing a morning podcast because I
You
thought that
know
was going to bring
what?
like
Now
a
that I
different,
think about
refreshing
it,
type energy to the podcast that we haven't had. And we had to refreshen things a little bit after, we're on episode 102 right now. So, we had to
yeah,
spice
and
things
you
up
know
a
what?
little
Now that
bit.
I think about it, I feel like Sunday is a good day to do the podcast. We could maybe
I mean,
make
that
this a
was the
regular.
original
It was
schedule
the
we were
original
supposed to be
idea,
on.
yeah.
But the Sunday right now, we're not on the early side of the Sunday. We're on the late. We're on like we should be preparing for this week's podcast that's coming up, like this upcoming week's
I feel like
podcast.
this kind of just now counts as Sunday is the start of the next week, but we'll hash that out. We'll hash that out.
Yeah, it's difficult because we like the sports that we cover. It's hard to get like a set day where it's like the best to be like come back and like because if we were talking about MMA, we know there's an event a UFC event every Saturday, and then we can do a podcast on Sunday and review what happened. You know what I mean? But like baseball is happening every day, so it's hard to even keep up with what's going on game by game. You know what I mean? You gotta have to summarize it a little bit. The NBA finals. I mean, there's a lot of like outside of this time of year with actual NBA action. There's also 30 teams playing all at one time that you got to try and figure out like what type of like league wise news you can fit in with the Sixers news we talk. So it's kind of hard to set a single day out to
Yeah,
get the
and you
best
know what?
news.
Instead of saying "Good morning, Vietnam," I thought about saying "Good mythical morning," but then I was worried we would get sued for copyright infringement.
Yeah,
However,
we're
maybe
not going to do that.
Elevation 5280 Sports would be the ones getting sued and not us. So good luck with that, Elevation. Um, anyway, speaking of Elevation 5280 Sports, welcome back again to the Paisan Sports Podcast, presented by now expecting a lawsuit, Elevation 5280 Sports. Dante DePlacido, joined as always by Zach Deal of What's the Deal Sports. So I've got to ask, what's the deal with Ace Bailey? Why does he hate Philly so much? Why does he not want to come to the Sixers? He's a perfect fit here. It's not like we see this at times in drafts in all sports, and it's usually because it's a terrible team they don't want to go to. At healthy, we're a contending team. Granted, we're a dumpster fire of an organization, so maybe that's maybe what his issue is. Um, but yeah, and then what's the deal with the Sixers that were this bad that Ace Bailey doesn't want to come here? What is going on?
Well, first off, with Ace Bailey, like you said, the Sixers, I think everybody and draft prospects themselves and then people league wide around the NBA believe the Sixers are one of the teams. I think the top three teams in this draft are teams that are going to actually hit the ground running after they get this draft pick and have a solid roster that can compete right away. I mean, the Mavericks are getting a generational player in Cooper Flag. Kyrie Irving has a torn ACL, but he'll be back at some point. And they also still have Anthony Davis, and they could make some moves with their roster. So they have a little bit more flexibility without Luka there. So they'll be good right away. The Spurs with Wemby, and then most likely Dylan Harper, De'Aaron Fox, another year Stephon Castle, the 4th overall pick next year. They'll be pretty good. They have some other players, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sochan. They got some good role players, Harrison Barnes as well. The Sixers obviously have a very good competing team as well. They just had a very off season with a bunch of injuries, but if they're healthy, they'll be able to compete. And the guy that they add at pick 3 or whatever they do in the draft will help them right away. That's why it's funny, because all the teams that are like drafting behind them, like the Jazz, that really don't have a direction, even though they have a little bit more talent than a team like the Wizards, who have pretty much no talent at all and are drafting like 5th or 6th. I think they're drafting 5th in the draft. So it might be 5th or 6th, but yeah, I think that's not the question though for Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey wants to go to a situation where he's guaranteed stardom, where he's going to be able to grow and blossom into a star, even though he sees Paul George as a mentor. And I'm pretty sure they have a relationship, and that's somebody that he looks up to. He's looking to be the face of a franchise, and it seems like right away. And since the Sixers aren't promising him the draft selection at pick 3, he actually canceled the meeting that was scheduled for this past Friday with them, and then goes on to post a picture of him throwing out the first pitch for the Mets in the upcoming thing. The funny part was, too, though, Dylan Harper, they both went to Rutgers, obviously, so that's North Jersey, so those are the teams that probably would be repping them. And Dylan Harper, his teammate who's going to go number 2 in the draft to the Spurs, is throwing out the first pick for the Yankees. So I don't know if it was just like it wasn't actually Mets Yankee, like it was just they assigned either one, this or that, and it just happened like that or whatever. But I thought that was ironic and funny, because I went to his Instagram the day that he canceled the meeting with the Sixers. Throughout the night, I woke up to that notification, and then I went to his Instagram later that day to see if there was like any activity of what he might be doing instead of meeting with the Sixers. And that was the post of him throwing out the first pitch for the Mets the same day that the Phillies were starting a series with them. But this isn't new for a Sixers player or potential Sixers player to not be repping another team throughout the city. I mean, how many times have we seen? I'm pretty sure Allen Iverson, I can pull up a picture of that Allen Iverson rocking Cowboys gear.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's
And a
the thing
Yankees
about
hat as well.
Iverson is, as much as I
And
hate
Tyrese
that
Maxey right now is from Dallas and is a proclaimed Cowboys fan. So
well, yeah, and here's the thing.
Bryce
Like,
Harper also was a Cowboys fan too. I'm going to keep going on a roll until I forget things
just
that
let me talk here.
Nolan Smith's dad, if you listen to the new Exciting Mike's podcast, Nolan Smith's dad is a diehard Cowboys fan.
Okay, well that's his freaking dad. And anyway, the point I want to get to here is first of all, I hate that photo of Iverson in Cowboys gear. It bothers me to my core.
Real quickly,
the thing is, wait, hold on.
All right.
Hold on. The thing is, Allen Iverson, while being a Cowboys fan, poured his heart out for the city, for the team, for the organization. You know, it's definitely different than Ace Bailey just being a Mets fan, but also refusing to work out for the Sixers. It's not. It's not a good one.
Besides that, Bryce Harper, what was it, the Monday night promo that he cut, saying that he was cutting the line for the Eagles when he was a known Cowboys fan. So that was kind of like drawing the sand in the line of him being a Cowboys fan turning into an Eagles fan, I guess. You remember that? I think it was a couple years ago.
Wait, what did he say?
It wasn't anything specific that he said. He did like that Monday night promo, I think, for the Eagles, like versus the Cowboys a couple years ago or something.
And the promo was like in favor of the Cowboys?
He was a Cowboys fan, but he was like in favor and did like a promo for ESPN for the game for the Eagles, I'm pretty sure, a couple years ago. And that was like what people like, oh, now he's an Eagles fan. And then he started repping the Eagles after that. But I was going to ask you, do you think, since the same way that Allen Iverson's seen of what he's done for the city, do you think that energy and the passion that Bryce Harper has played with since he's been in Philadelphia, do you think he would get a pass if he was still repping the Cowboys the same way he was until he came to Philadelphia?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bryce Harper. I mean, similar to Iverson, he's poured his heart and soul out for the city. You know, you look at a guy who's the Fanatics' number one fan out of anyone. He's a guy who wants
Got him
to.
tatted on him in the offseason, didn't he?
Yeah,
Was it on his
I
forearm or
think,
his
yeah,
wrist?
I'm pretty sure he did. He got the Fanatic tatted on him. He, wants to finish his career in Philly, even though, I mean, with his current contract, he likely will, but he was talking about extension not long ago. He's a guy who moved from outfield to DH without complaining, who moved from DH to first base without complaining. I actually, you know what? That's going to bring us to another topic shortly. Rafi Devers. That's an interesting one. But yeah, no, I mean Bryce Harper. He easily gets a pass, especially because of Bedlam at the bank as well. I mean, he sent us to the World Series.
Who were some? I was gonna also ask while we're on the topic. Who were some other like cities superstars that rep the Philadelphia teams hard that you can think of off the top of your head?
Oh,
Just not like they're
people
like the
who
most popular, but in recent memory, I feel like Jalen Brunson and Cat have been
Jalen
represented
Brunson.
well.
Isn't I might be completely mistaken, but isn't Carl Anthony Towns an Eagles fan?
I just said that, Cat. I just
Oh
said
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, Jalen Brunson, Carl Anthony Towns. If they're all
Kobe
that.
used to rock the McNabb jersey
Oh
and was like
yeah.
a
Oh well, yeah. Kobe
known
was a
Eagles
huge
fan.
Eagles fan. Kobe would have been the
I'm
biggest
pretty sure
Jalen Brunson fan.
there's a picture of LeBron rocking a McNabb jersey, isn't there?
Yeah, but that was like
That
during
was like
the
the jersey era, though. That
yeah,
wasn't
that was
like the
like the
actual
Jersey
fan.
era. That
But
didn't
he was
actually
hyping
like
up
mean
Saquon.
anything.
Saquon did the hurdle in LeBron's like cleated shoe. It was like the LeBron 4 retro that was like cleated, like that silver, like weird looking Nike shoe that he did like the backwards hurdle. I'm just like a sneakerhead. That's why I know that. But
Is Micah Parsons a Philly sports fan outside of the Cowboys? I could be wrong.
yeah, he was wasn't he at the Phillies playoff games?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Okay, yeah. So Parsons is another, and the funny thing is, it's always our division rivals that we're talking
Well,
about. Like,
Abdul Carter had a Carter 11 like scripted like a custom what was it jacket or sweatshirt with the Let's Hunt theme. You know the Let's Hunt
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
promotion. He had
yeah,
like a Carter 11 one, and then now he's literally playing for the Giants. I thought that was hilarious.
yeah. So yeah, and yeah, it's across all sports ends up being our division rivals mainly. One
Mike
thing I
Trout,
do want to
massive
say.
one. Mike Trout's a massive one. He's always at the Eagles games.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a huge one. Although Joe Flacco's from the area, I don't think I've ever witnessed him supporting Philly
Yeah.
sports. One thing I will say before we move on to the Phillies is there is nothing that brings me more joy in life when you discover somebody like whether it's like an internet celebrity, an actual celebrity who like doesn't really have any ties to Philly, but then you just discover they're like an Eagles fan. It like brings me joy. Like speaking of
That makes a lot of people upset.
no, I love finding out. I love just randomly finding out somebody's an Eagles fan. Like,
What
and
do you need to like do they need to be verified of how they're an Eagles fan though? Like if
no,
are you upset about the bandwagon like you're okay with just accepting bandwagon Eagles fans since they're the best team in the league right now?
um, I guess maybe like if they just jumped on the bandwagon in the past
We're
couple
going
of
to
years,
transition
but
into baseball real quickly, but I mean, Philadelphia sports are easy to latch onto just because it's a very popular city. We have two of the best teams, but that was one of the things that I'm going to get to. The Eagles are known as them and the Chiefs being the two best teams in the NFL currently and have been for like the past 2 to 3 years. I feel like people around here, like even though we do hype them up and like we'll contest them versus other teams, I feel like there is a spot where people around here still underrate how good the Phillies are and the national thought process of how good the Phillies are. Like the Phillies are still consensuously considered like a
oh
top
yeah,
four team in the sport.
let's get into that in 1 second. I just want to finish my thought. And like for example, and it's funny enough because I referenced Mythical Morning earlier, but Are you familiar with like Mythical Kitchen, Mythical Morning, any of that? So, well, Good Mythical Morning. It's like a YouTube series that's been around since like the beginning of YouTube. It's very popular. I don't really watch it, but and then there's the spin-off Mythical Kitchen, which I actually watch because I watch a ton of different cooking shows and channels. And the guy on there, the chef, Josh, he's from California, and I watch those videos all the time. And I'm watching it, and suddenly he starts referencing the Eagles. And he's going off like, he's like, let me see how many obscure Eagles players I can name. And he's going off with like premium ball knowledge, like naming the most obscure Eagles from like the early 2010s. And so, like, that is more so like what I'm referencing. It's like he's not just a bandwagoner, he's from California, but like he's like a legit Eagles fan. And it's like that brings a certain amount of like happiness to me that I
Yeah,
can't
I get what
explain.
you're saying. I understand
Yeah.
that. I was gonna bring up before we transition to baseball. You know how like for me, I'm a like a diehard LeBron fan ever since I grown up, and I love the Sixers too. Um, you know how popular out like Allen Iverson, like LeBron being one of the best players of all time, but Allen Iverson, like popularity wise, is like neck and neck with LeBron, like and Kobe, just because of how popular he actually was. Not like saying players like talent wise of all time, but popularity. Allen Iverson's like a top five most popular player of all time. I feel like everybody would consensuously say that, correct?
Yeah.
There's not really, do you feel like there's any like leftover Sixers bandwagon fans from the Allen Iverson era that were
Oh.
diehard Allen Iverson fans that stayed with the Sixers? Because I feel like there's still Cavs fans. There's obviously still Lakers fans that are Kobe fans and like Magic, and there's Larry Bird Celtics fans that are diehards from them. But like, I feel like I don't really ever sense like, oh yeah, I love the Sixers because of Allen Iverson back in the day, and I still love them. I feel like I don't really ever hear that.
Well, because that's the thing. I feel like with basketball, people like those kinds of people, after that career ends, they just pick a new player and then they just become a
Yeah,
fan of whatever team that player's on. That's
football is
kind of
hard to do with that. Like I loved players, like I loved Adrian Peterson's like my favorite player growing up. I was a Ravens fan because of Joe Flacco. Obviously, I have connections to him. There's some other players like I was a huge Leonard Fournette fan. There's other players that I really liked in the league that I rooted for their teams at times. I feel like baseball is pretty easy to do that with too. Football is probably the hardest sport to like randomly like a player and also root for their team while having a diehard team that you love. But like basketball is the easiest, like to like have a diehard like player that you love randomly across the league, and then like still have a team too. I feel like
yeah.
that's the
Well,
easiest.
when I was a kid, I was a huge T Mac fan.
Yeah, I love T
Um,
Mac too. I had his shoes and everything, the Adidas shoes.
yeah, I had his
There's a bunch of
jersey.
players that I liked back in the day. I was also, it's funny because I'm also a big Kevin Durant fan too, so I always rooted for Kevin Durant, but not to the
I
extent
would
that like
say I would
LeBron.
say I will say this, and then let's actually get into Phillies. Um, I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the podcast, but back, I want to say 2011. It was the year before the Warriors signed Iggy, and they were in the playoffs. And I was at my grandparents' house with my uncle watching the Warriors in a playoff game. In the very beginning of their nucleus. And my uncle was like, "Look out for this Warriors team; they're going to be really good." Um, my uncle ended up passing away, and then the Warriors signed Iggy, and I mean I was still a huge Iggy fan from him being on the Sixers. So then I kind of like hopped on the Warriors bandwagon just because like my then late uncle told me look out for this team, and now they have Iggy. So I'm like I'm locked in on the Warriors, and so during like the whole like Sixers process era, like of course I was locked in on that, but I was also at the same time a pretty big Warriors fan. But then they signed KD, and although I kept rooting for the Warriors, like then I was just lumped in with all the bandwagon fans, which felt lame. I mean, technically I was a bandwagon fan, because they started to get good, and that's when I started rooting for them. But I did hop on the bandwagon before they became like a super team. And even to this day, like I'm still definitely a big Steph Curry fan, and I do always root for the Warriors to do well. They're like my they're kind of like my Western Conference team that I root for. And especially this wasn't like really what like played into it, but like it's another reason I justify it in my head is they were originally the Philadelphia Warriors. So that's just like another reason to root for them in my opinion.
Yeah, I hate that justification though because the Steelers are my least favorite team of all time, so I'll never try and justify that with the Eagles.
Well, okay, but you're talking about 1 year that they were
But I'm sorry to hear
coaching
about
with
your
the
uncle.
Eagles. Oh no, that's all right. That was
Honestly,
years ago.
honestly, we're gonna push back the baseball talk because we're already in the midst of basketball talk. We're already in the midst of basketball talk, and I feel
Yeah,
like I need
pretty
to
much.
expand this
Yeah, fair
conversation.
point.
So we
Fair
might as well
point.
just expand the basketball conversation. But yeah, for me, before we talk about the NBA finals and the draft, just like the bandwagon thing, I was never considered a bandwagon fan for rooting for LeBron because like I've been a known LeBron fan ever. Like that was my childhood like favorite athlete, and like I've been a known LeBron fan forever. I have like pictures of me rocking his shoes and jerseys when he first got drafted, so it was like never in question. So like I never got considered like, oh, you're just rooting for him because he's about to win the finals or he's playing in the finals. Every like that was never the case for me. Adrian Peterson was my favorite NFL fan. I was never like, like I never rooted for the Vikings hard though, like in their prime. And they had a couple matchups with the Eagles. I'm pretty sure one of them was in the playoffs too. And like I didn't even have thoughts about ever rooting for them or seeing success for them at all when they were matching up face to face. Baseball, my known favorite baseball player of all time is Jim Thome. So he played for that's what's funny is all the sports that I follow, my actual favorite athlete of all time isn't a Philadelphia player besides Jim Thome, like of them playing there.
You know who one of my favorite all-time baseball players is? It's a weird one. Dennis Eckersley. I never even watched him play, but when I was a
Like the St.
kid,
Louis Cardinals relief pitcher.
well, I know him as the Oakland Athletics relief pitcher, but when I was a kid, I pulled one of his baseball cards. And I don't know why. Maybe I just liked the vibe of him, but I started like looking into like old like videos and highlights of him. And I fuck with this dude. So Dennis Eckersley is actually one of my all-time favorite
I'm trying to
players.
think of somebody who I like didn't get to watch in their era that I like watch highlights of, and I'm like, damn, I would have loved to like watch him play basketball. You know who's somebody that's random that would have been fired to watch play basketball was you ever see the highlights of Sean Kemp dunking on people, the supersonic
Yeah,
stuff? And
yeah.
the one where he hits the windmill and then he like points at the dude on the ground.
Yeah.
Like I was like, yo, imagine like him doing that in 2025 and someone's on Twitter, like you get an ESPN update, like Sean Kemp just absolutely disrespects the defender. Like that would be so funny.
Well, yeah, from what I understand, like the Supersonics, they were really high in popularity in the 90s.
Oh
Like
yeah. Well,
really
they had
high
a
in
good they had
popularity.
a I mean, think about a franchise that was like on its like last limb in their city that was able to transition with the franchise player that they had and Kevin Durant playing one season and then moving like is that like the best expansion franchise like I mean the Ravens first two draft picks when they went to Baltimore their first round draft picks were Jonathan Ogden and Ray Lewis, but Kevin
Yeah, but
Durant.
they never played in Browns uniforms though, right?
No, they got drafted when the Ravens
Yeah.
moved to Baltimore,
Yeah,
but
because
Kevin
KD
Durant actually
actually played
played
in
for the
a Supersonics
Supersonics. Like
uniform.
he actually
I would
was on
say the only
Seattle.
thing close to that is like Steph Curry, his first year in Golden State. They were rocking the old Golden State Warriors look.
Yeah, but
I'm
they were
trying to
always
think maybe if like the Montreal Expos had no, they didn't have any good players the year before they transitioned to the
was no, yeah.
Nationals.
I used to have baseball tickets. One of the baseball tickets that I had, like the actual fiscal tickets from back in the day, and I had a Montreal Expos. I think they left in what 03.
Yeah, I think that was their final season there. Yeah,
Vlad
2003.
played for them, but he wasn't there at that time, was he?
Let me see. 2003 Montreal Expos. 2004. Oh no, 2004 was their final season. They went
Vlad was
67
there
and
until
95.
2003. This was his last season there.
Who was there?
Vlad Guerrero Sr.
Oh, well, yeah, that's not like the same though, but I didn't know that. That's interesting. Yeah, dude, I'm looking at the roster
Yo,
from
he was actually
'04.
low-key a better player. He actually was cranking more home runs with them, but we'll talk about random baseball stuff. But basketball wise, we got the NBA Finals. We got Game 7. You're gonna miss it because you're going to the Phillies game tonight. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's really tough. This is
I
one of
mean,
those
it is, but here's the thing. If this was like if this was just a random Phillies game against like let's say why am I struggling to think of an obscure team? A National League team that isn't a
Reds.
rival or a good team. Reds. There you go. Anyway, if this was just a regular Sunday game against the Reds, I'd be upset. But this is the rubber match against the Mets to take control of the division. So I'm missing the finals, but this is going to be awesome. This is going to feel like a playoff game.
Yeah, but
So
I
I'm
would also
excited.
I would counter you with this is like the best. This is a top 5 NBA playoffs. The conclusion of a top 5 NBA playoffs since we've been alive.
Well, this is, as a lot of people have been talking about, this is the first Game 7 since 2016, which is crazy.
I wanted to get it off my chest real quickly too, because I feel like I never have an opportunity to mention it, and I never have an opportunity for someone to contest me on my thought or have the conversation with it yet. What do you, off the top of your head, what do you think the best defensive play in the history of sports would be?
Oh, across all sports?
Yeah, I think I have it summed up to one
That's
play.
tough. I'll give you one for each sport. I'll give you one
All
for
right.
each
Well,
sport.
yeah, we can make let's make a Mount Rushmore real quickly. Maybe each sport you can think off the top of your head. So football,
Yeah.
off the top of our head, we would probably put the Malcolm Butler interception. Maybe would be a really good candidate.
I would say the Malcolm Butler interception, and although and I am saying this biasly, just because it's another Super Bowl winning defensive play, I'm going to say the strip sack. The BG strip sack is also up there, but now the Malcolm Butler interception is higher. It's
Yeah,
higher.
I thought you were going to try and say the Cooper DeJean play. I was going to say you're crazy, but then when you came up
No,
with the
no,
BG
but yeah.
play,
So for football,
I couldn't
yeah.
justify that, but the Malcolm Butler play is like.
Although I will say Chuck Bednarik's tackle is more famous than the BG strip sack in terms
What's
of like
another like
overall football
crazy?
lore. Baseball, I'm going to say the Willie Mays catch. Definitely the Willie Mays
I
catch.
guess honestly, NFL, could you put the Richard Sherman deflection up there?
Not above Malcolm Butler. Not above Malcolm
Yeah.
Butler.
Okay. So football, we got Malcolm Butler off the top of our head.
I'm going baseball. I'm going Willie Mays catch in the World Series.
Yeah, that's the one I was. Yeah, that's one. Would you put the Jeter flip play, or do you think that's an overrated play?
I'm not even entirely sure which play
The
you're
one where he's
referring
like
to.
he's running off like the third base line, and he like flips it back to the catcher to get the guy out at home in the playoffs. You don't remember
No,
that play? It's like the
I'm
most
not.
iconic Derek Jeter play.
I don't know. For basketball,
I think it's the LeBron block. I don't even think that's
I think it's the LeBron block, but I will say this: the LeBron block, the play I'm about to mention, the LeBron block is higher than this because of it being in the finals and the impact it had on the Cavs winning it. But I will say, in terms of just a play itself, Tayshaun Prince did it better against the Pacers.
Oh yeah,
Reggie Miller in the conference finals.
Yeah, that was crazy. Yo, it's an
That
underrated
made me
one.
a Tayshaun Prince fan. You want to talk about being a fan of random players on other teams? I was a Tayshaun Prince fan as a kid because of that play.
The LeBron block was iconic. Like, I think that's the best defensive play ever. That's why I sparked this conversation. But do you remember the original LeBron finals block versus Thiago Splitter, where he just jumps from straight up underneath the rim and blocks the Spurs
No, I
back
don't
up
remember
center
that.
at the rim in the finals and just straight up stuffs them at the rim when they were up 20, and it was just crazy. But underrated. Do you ever see the still image of Bam Adebayo's block on Jason Tatum in the bubbles to get to the bubbles final a couple years ago?
I'll
Bro,
be honest.
his
I've
middle finger
blocked
is.
the bubble out of my memory. I've completely blocked it out of my memory.
Let me pull up this
The
picture.
only thing I remember about the bubble is the Mike Muscala shot that eventually got us Tyrese Maxey.
Hold on real quick. Let me pull up this picture. But yeah, I'm so excited for the game tonight. Like everybody's been talking. It's so refreshing too because all that shit talking of everybody talking about how the NBA sucks and nobody watches it anymore. No one's been saying that for the past 2 months because they realize this is one of the best playoffs.
It's been a
Best finals.
tremendous playoff, definitely. And it's been a much better playoff than recent years because it like nobody's known. I mean, everybody kind of figured OKC was going to make the finals. The East was just wide open, and it was just a battle. But even so, I feel like there isn't like that one like super team where it's like, oh well, obviously they're going to win the finals, like what we've seen in years past.
This was the bubble Eastern Finals game 1 at the buzzer.
Oh my god!
Adebayo's hands were fully extended and his like middle finger blocked Tatum at the rim, like
That's
full
like something
momentum
out of a
cocked
movie.
back. That shit was insane. That had me hyped up. But like, dude, Tyrese Halliburton though this playoffs has made like 5 of like the 25 most hype NBA plays I've seen since I've been growing up. Like honestly,
I don't know if do you ever see clips of the Pat Bev podcast with Roan?
I listen to a lot of podcasts like all day long, but I don't listen to the Pat Bev one.
So Roan brought up he said if the Pacers win the finals, is Tyrese Halliburton out of the past 25 years, out of the past 25 finals winners, is Tyrese Halliburton the worst best player out of all those finals teams?
I hate this conversation. I'm going to stop it here because I follow him all the time, and I've been a big believer in him, because I remember not knowing anything about him from college, and then like seeing all this draft hype about him, and I was like, I don't like remember this dude doing anything in college that like made me like think about him or anything, and then I started looking into him. And he was, written off. He got drafted a little bit later than he thought he should. He was the best point guard. There was like teams like the Pistons drafting Killian Hayes over him. People don't understand Tyrese Halliburton just because he like sometimes that scores like 12 points. Like he's literally giving you 10 assists easy every game. Like he's a traditional point guard.
Listen, Tyrese Halliburton is a great player, and that's why he would be the best player on a finals winning team. But think about all the other best players. Like, is he better than Tatum? No.
Are you
Is
talking
he
about
better
teams
than-
like? You're talking about all right. So now I see where we were going with the conversation. I was looking at it as a whole. More so, I'm looking at it now as teams that have won the finals, and you line up all those teams, the best player from each of those teams.
Yes.
I'll hit you with this. Is Tyrese Halliburton the best player on his team?
Well, yeah,
Siakam,
some would argue Siakam. Some would argue
Siakam was the
Siakam,
second
but
best player on the Raptors.
but listen, if it wasn't for Halliburton stepping up in the big moments, they wouldn't be where they are.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's why I would put Halliburton over Siakam. But yeah, I mean, if you look at all the finals winners over the past 25 years, right? You look at all their best players. He's not better than Jokic. He's not better than Tatum. He's not better than Giannis. He's not better than Steph, LeBron, Dirk, Tim Duncan. I can't really think of.
I'm trying to think. Maybe you would probably have to go back to that Pistons team, the 2004 Pistons.
Actually, yeah, because the 04 Pistons.
That's where I was going with this conversation. Is people are upset that we're seeing a Steve Nash like a. Who was the other guy that a Jason Kidd like a. Reggie Miller almost like a Chauncey Billups like player, Chris Paul like player point guard that's truly a traditional point guard that steps up and makes the big shots when he needs to. All those players I just named, Steve Nash was winning MVPs over like the LeBrons and the Kobes of the world, averaging like 14, like 10 and 10, or not 10 rebounds, but 14, 10, whatever his stat line wasn't the most impressive, but he was the best facilitator of an offense in the entire league. And people were upset because they didn't think that style of basketball could still win in today's NBA. And now that type of player is succeeding, and they're trying to call this guy not one of the best players, when if you look at the amount of points that he accumulates for his team based off of whether he's assisting the ball or shooting the ball himself, he's always making an impact on the floor. I mean, we're talking about a guy that took down a team that won 60 games in the regular season, the Cavs. And didn't he have a 31-point, 15 assists with 0 turnovers game in the playoffs to take that team down?
Listen, I'm not trying to take anything away from Halliburton. I just think it's an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, going back to that 04 Pistons team, there was never like one true star. It was just a combination of a lot of great players, like that.
It was Ben Wallace, best defensive player in the league.
Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, Tayshaun Prince, Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups.
Yeah, that's a crazy
line. I mean, yeah, that was the starting 5. None of them were like elite stars, but together,
that's the team. That's the team that broke up the three-peat Lakers.
Oh yeah.
They beat the Lakers, and the Lakers broke up after they beat the Lakers. And then the best part to the GOAT conversation is LeBron. That was LeBron's most iconic performance when he dropped 25 of the Cavs' last 27 points versus the Pistons in overtime.
So wait, real quick, who would you consider to have been the best player on that Pistons squad?
Dude, that's like the most.
It's a tough question.
Team. That's like the most even team ever. Can I?
I know it's a tough question, dude. Because all right, you think about the best defender, it was Ben Wallace. You think about the best two-way player, I'm going to say Rasheed Wallace in terms of points.
Well,
and
Prince
defense.
was also like Ben Wallace was the best defensive player, but Prince was also a crazy defender too.
Yeah, he was too. And then Rip Hamilton was just out there to get buckets. Yeah, it's impossible really to say who the best player on that team
was. Trying to pull up the list of the winners real quickly to see like the evenness. Are we talking about, so if we're going to make this conversation of the most even championship teams, will the Warriors with KD be in that combo of having KD and Steph, since of how the level tier of those guys together? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I guess you could think about that. I would also say the last Spurs team that won a final.
I was going to say the Spurs. Well, Tim,
because by that point Tim Duncan had dipped a little bit, and then you had Kawhi on the uprise. You still had Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili. So I would say that was a pretty even squad.
Well, dude, I feel like people don't give Jaylen Brown the credit for how good of a player he is, and they make the gap between him and Jason Tatum so much bigger than it actually is.
That's another one, but I want to exclude teams where it's just like 2 players. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get you.
I feel like for this it has to be like 3 or 4. So like obviously not like Shaq and Kobe. You know.
Another team that was like that, but didn't win the championship, but they competed for back-to-back finals and lost to the Lakers and the Spurs. Those Nets teams with Jason Kidd and Richard Jefferson back in the day.
Actually, you know what? I will give you an example out of our own city. I'll say the 1983 76ers. You know, with Dr.
Yo, you want to hear something so funny? You want to hear something so funny? Because that you brought it up. So Moses Malone's the player on the 1980. He's the person that got them over the hump to win the championship. The Sixers won championships. They were 3-time champions in 1955, 1967, and 1983. And it's actually funny. The Sixers lost to the youngest championship team ever in finals history, which is the Trailblazers of 1977 with Bill Walton, who just passed away. RIP to him. That was the youngest team ever. The Thunder are the second youngest team in NBA Finals history. This year's Thunder, so they could potentially win it and be the second youngest team ever. But I was on Dick's Sporting Goods looking at like discounted like Philly sports gear, and they have a Mitchell and Ness jersey listed on there, and it's a Moses Malone jersey, but it says it's Karl Malone, and I thought that was so funny.
It was funny, but yeah, think about that Sixers team, right? They had Mo Cheeks, Dr. J, Moses Malone, Bobby
But
Jones,
that's where the
Andrew
conversation.
Toney.
Yeah, but who's the only person that's ever mentioned in the top 25 players of all time?
Listen, Moses and Dr. J are two all-time greats. And at the time they won the finals, Tony and Mo Cheeks were both stars too. Did they all make the All-Star team that year? Wait. So Mo Cheeks was an All-Star in that season. Andrew Toney was an All-Star in that season. So I assume Dr. J and Moses Malone were also All-Stars. So that's four their players. And then Bobby Jones made the All-Star team the 2 years before that as well. So they had
Their
they
1967 their 1967 championship team, I was looking at it the other day, has like 6 Hall of Famers.
Jeez.
Isn't that crazy? But it's an interesting thing about the Sixers that have won the championship 3 times, and the guy that's been involved twice, once as the head coach and then one time as a player and as a Hall of Fame player, Billy Cunningham was a Hall of Fame player for them in 1967 and was the head coach in 1983 when they won the championship.
And you know what? The assistant head coach who became the head coach the final season, Matt Gukas, another former Sixers player, played basketball at St. Joe's, where his grandson, my cousin, also Matt Gukas, currently plays basketball St. Joe's.
So I remember you were talking about that.
Yeah. Before. Anyway,
so
we're 40 minutes in. Let's spin this
around. Let's spin this around real quickly to the NBA draft. So we just talked about a star level players and the best player on a championship team and what the profile may be of those players. We talked about Tim Duncan, a power forward. That's just the fun. His nickname was the fundamental because he could get everything done exactly how you needed to get done. LeBron, probably the biggest freak in the NBA's history. Kobe, another fundamental wizard with crazy athleticism. Giannis, just an athletic freak. What's the prototype that's going to get the Sixers to a championship that ties them to what they should do with the 3rd overall pick? And Wednesdays, Dante, we're 3 days away. We went from not knowing that we're even going to have a top 3 pick to the draft within 3 days with a 3rd overall pick. And this draft starts with the Sixers. I mean, we know who the number 1 pick and the number 2 picks are going to be, regardless of if a team comes up and pays a bag and shocks the league and comes up and trades with the Spurs or the Mavericks to get those draft selections. It's not going to change who's going to go in those spots. But at pick 3, the Sixers hold the keys to the draft. We just mentioned the teams that have won recently and what their teams have looked like. What do you think a Sixers championship team looks like, and what should they do with this 3rd overall pick? This could also be a trade if you have a trade that you can concoct off the top of your head. Even if you think that the current roster is good enough and trade back for future picks or whatever, just give me what would get the Sixers to a championship and how that could be the asset of the 3rd overall pick and Wednesday's draft could be used to get there.
Listen, unless it's a situation of like Eli Manning refusing to play for the Chargers, still go out and get Ace Bailey.
That's not even the most recent NFL incident of that. I mean, with Shamar Stewart, who we just brought, was he our meatball of the week last week? He was the what's the deal of our.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's not like he's been traded.
He walked out of training camp.
Did he now?
Yeah, you didn't hear about that part?
No, that's not good. But I still think the Sixers should draft Ace Bailey and get him to warm up to the idea of being a 76er.
Now, do you say that with you like his prototype and that type of player wins you it, or specifically Ace Bailey himself is the guy that you want, or when I say you like his prototype and that's the guy that you can win with, you can take the third pick since he doesn't want to be there and go and move it. Because, I mean, if this guy truly doesn't want to be here and you think that you're going to go spend the pick on BJ Edgecombe, who's a good player, but you have a logjam at the
Well,
one and two
if you're not gonna take Ace Bailey, you're gonna take a guy like VJ Edgecombe. I would say maybe trade back. But it's
Well, I
the
was going to
thing.
say real quickly,
Well,
not to cut you off.
hold on. The thing with Ace Bailey is all we know is he refused to work out for the Sixers and he's throwing the first pitch for the Mets, right? We haven't seen any reports of him saying I will not play in Philadelphia or anything crazy like that. So it's not like I don't think massive strides need to be made in terms of getting Ace Bailey into a Sixers uniform after drafting him. I think like he'll just like reluctantly play for us at first. I don't think anything crazy is going to happen if we draft him. And as far as the first pitch for the Mets thing, I was actually just thinking about this about 20 seconds ago. He played at Rutgers. Now I was in New Brunswick recently. That's pretty close to New York. It's like
30 seconds ago, I told you that before we started the podcast. I said that's why he threw out the pick, because Dylan Harper was throwing out the first pick for the Yankees. So I don't know if
doesn't
they
that feel weird though? Like
assigned them that.
when we think about Rutgers, like at being South Jersey guys, like Rutgers feels like a local school. It feels like a hometown school. But then you see like Rutgers players like affiliating themselves with New York sports, and and then you remember it's like, oh, it's closer to New York. It's more associated with New York, which is like it feels so weird, because like New York is such like a rival city to us. So to
Ace
like
Bailey is
share
also
Rutgers in a way, it just
Ace
feels
Bailey
weird.
is from Tennessee and also went to a high school in Georgia. So I don't think he has any ties to New
Yeah,
York.
he has no other ties to New
Yeah.
York. And I also think like Rutgers feels more local to us also because like they have another campus right here in Camden.
Well, I
So
think Rutgers is definitely it's the state, like it's like the New Jersey State College. It's not like a South Jersey, North Jersey thing. It's just the state New Jersey. Like how many
yeah.
people? My sister's husband, my brother-in-law went to Rutgers. My other sister, I have two sisters, and my oldest sister went to Rutgers, and then my other sister's husband went to Rutgers, and then I know one of my best friends went to Rutgers. A couple of my other friends went to Rutgers, and then I can name another 25 people that I know closely that went to
Well,
Rutgers.
and speaking of New Jersey colleges, yesterday I was in Ewing, which is where the college in New Jersey is. Up there's three colleges: College in New Jersey, Rider, and Princeton, which is actually a huge school, but that's in terms of academics. And then down here we have Rowan, which I think is like in terms of sports, I'm pretty sure they're Division III. So yeah, no, in terms of sports, Rutgers is definitely the biggest college in the state. But yeah, I still think they should draft Ace Bailey.
Yeah, well, I mean, let me pitch this to you because this is what I was going to say: is if Ace Bailey, if you truly think that he's going to cause issues and not benefit you, him being on your roster, I mean, you could always take him. Look at some of the players that have gotten drafted and then traded within 1 year. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton played 2 seasons for the Kings and then got traded. SGA got traded after his rookie season when the SGA as a rookie, the Clippers, when SGA was on the Clippers as a rookie, they beat the Warriors in the playoffs twice in a 6-game series that the Warriors obviously ended up winning, but they beat the Warriors twice in the playoffs in a playoff series, and SGA was balling, and then he got traded for Paul George, and then that slew of picks. So, I mean, we're talking about some of the best players in the league getting drafted, and then traded quickly after their contract. I mean, there was another guy, the Sixers drafted Nikola Vucevic, and then traded him after his rookie.
I forget that sometimes that we have
Domantas Sabonis was on the Thunder for 1 year before he got traded, and then traded again for Tyrese Halliburton. So look at some of the players and
and look at Eagles examples. Dominique Rodgers Cromartie. Who was that safety that I think played for the Bills? Also started out as an Eagle that we forget.
Jordan
Was it
Poyer.
was it Patrick Chung or
No, it was
no? That was
Jordan
the
Poyer.
Patriots. But was it Chung?
It was Jordan Poyer.
Oh yeah, Jordan Poyer. Yeah, that's who. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it happens a lot in
Well,
sports.
if you actually think Ace Bailey's going to cause issues with you, and like I said, the traded thing, you could draft him, and then maybe trade him to a team like the Bucks for Giannis. If
Who
that's
know?
if
I
you want
mean,
to
well,
go
that would
all
be
in,
that
trips
would
like
be a
that.
home
But
run
I think
home, but
Ace Bailey. Do you know how young Ace Bailey is?
18.
Like we're talking, yeah, but like we're talking 18. He doesn't turn 19 until like November
I
or
think he was
August.
born in '06, which makes me want to shoot
Cooper Flag's
myself.
insane. You know, Cooper Flag doesn't turn 19 until December.
That's nuts, dude.
So that's insane.
It's so weird with basketball how young these guys
Yeah,
come
but
into
Cooper
the
also
league.
played a year of college, though. That's what's crazy is like he's not like LeBron straight out of high school, 18 in the NBA. Like he's a year of college and 18 in the NBA. Like that's insane.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's
but
wild.
like the Ace Bailey thing, I don't understand the. I see a lot of people that I respect their opinion in the Philadelphia basketball sports realm, and I listen to their podcasts all the time. They keep saying that even if Ace Bailey hits his ceiling, by the time he gets there, the Sixers won't be on that timeline. But they also will contradict that statement by saying like they don't want the Sixers to make this decision based off the timeline of Paul George and Joel Embiid. So it's like I don't understand the in between with that. Like I love the upside of Ace Bailey and having so much time to grow into that upside with how young he is. Like I think that Ace Bailey should be the pick. If not, I would be down to make a big splash move like for a guy like Giannis or something like that. But I like VJ Edgecombe as a player, and I like some of these other prospects. I really like the kid from Texas, Trey Johnson. I just think that if Ace Bailey's on the board, I can't justify taking any of these other prospects, even though I wouldn't be mad if they went into next season with either VJ Edgecombe, Trey Johnson, or Con Knipple on the roster. But I can't justify taking them over Ace Bailey. Um, Ace Bailey, I just feel like provides you like the highest upside of what you can do. And I really don't think it's going to be an issue where I think you just need him to get, like you said, to get him into the building with the Sixers. And I think everything will play itself out from there. But I really just don't see a justification for them taking any of those other players over top of having Ace Bailey on the board. Because you got to think the asset that he is. Like VJ Edgecombe is the favorite, the third favorite to be the second pick now. He's tied with Ace Bailey to be the second pick plus 2,500, but he's the third favorite, or he's the favorite to be the third pick minus 250, and then Ace is plus 410. So it just kind of shows you right there that VJ is getting valued. But even if you like they could pull off a move where they move back a spot with the Hornets. You know that dude, you know what I was thinking would be the perfect draft scenario for the Sixers? You remember that dude that got traded to the Lakers at the trade deadline and then they recanted the trade? The center from the Hornets?
No.
Mark Williams. Remember Dalton Connect and they traded him and then the trade got voided because of the medicals on Mark Williams from the Hornets.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah, well, the Mark Williams center on the Hornets was in his third season last year. He got traded at the trade deadline to the Lakers after they traded Anthony Davis for Dalton Connect and some other things. The trade was like good for a week, and then the medicals for the Lakers didn't work out, so they voided the trade. And then Dalton Connect went back to the Lakers and had to play for the Lakers. And it was like a whole weird, awkward situation. So I feel like the standing with the Hornets and Mark Williams isn't the best, but he's a solid young player. Let me read you Mark Williams' stats real quick. 15 points last year in 26 minutes, and he averaged 10 rebounds and 2 assists. So he was going to fill in for the Lakers and be their center after AD left. Imagine if the Hornets actually want VJ Edgecombe, and there's a good chance that if the Sixers don't draft him, he goes there. I don't know if the Hornets would draft Ace Bailey if he's there at 4 because they have Brandon Miller. But would you move back one spot, hoping that the Hornets draft VJ Edgecombe, still get Ace Bailey, and then end up with that center in the trade down?
I mean, it's taking a gamble, so I don't know. I kind of want to just lock in
I really
Ace
don't think the
Bailey and move
Hornets would
on with
draft
our
Ace
line.
Bailey with Brandon Miller on their roster. I just feel like they're too similar of players. But I mean, who
Yeah,
knows how
I
these
don't
things
know. It's a
will
bit of
pan
a
out.
gamble. But anyhow, we are deep into this podcast. Let's talk about the Phillies here. Um, Real quick, I was just on Twitter. You're aware of CB Buckner, right?
He's a MLB ref or umpire, isn't he?
Yeah, he's like really bad at his job. Like ever since Angel Hernandez left, he's been like the new Angel Hernandez. Brother, look at all these missed calls he had last night. This is egregious. Look at look at that one. This pitch was called a ball.
Why
Like,
am I looking at a picture of you shirtless?
what are you talking about?
Nah,
Anyway,
I'm joking. Yeah.
but yeah,
What's that? I can't think of off the top of my head. Everybody abbreviates it. What's the system called? The three abbreviated letter system that there's what's it called?
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's the review system, the automatic system that everybody abbreviates with three letters. What's that called?
Oh yeah, no, I don't know what three letters you're talking about. I forget.
You know what I'm talking about, that, right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, now we are not far away from that. And we've seen some pretty bad calls in this series against the Mets, some that have not gone the Phillies' way. The only ones that I can really remember that went the Phillies' way was the two strike calls on Juan Soto, but then he check swinged on what would have been strike three. I mean, he
Wasn't there somebody
swung
around the
on
league
what
that
would have
just
been strike three, but they said he didn't go, which he did.
there
So
was
it kind
somebody around the
of
league that just like had like a perfect game or no, it was I'm pretty sure was it Kodai Senga before he got hurt? Somebody like some big time pitcher had like an immaculate inning going, and they threw a fastball. Like, say the zone was here, it was like it hit right here. It was like a perfect middle of the zone fastball. Probably could have got smacked if the hitter actually went after it, but they didn't. And it was for the immaculate inning, the ninth pitch, and the umpire just
Oh,
didn't call it a
wow.
strike, and it was just disgusting. It was just a
Bro,
horrible, horrible call.
you would have to fight me after that. I'd be furious. But let's talk about the series right now. This is easily so far this season. This is the biggest series of the season. Not only because we need to finally get a series win against the Mets, but also tonight's the rubber match. Whoever wins takes control of the NL East for now.
Yeah, I mean, the Mets, it's been understated. The Mets have won what? One game in their past 8 games for the Phillies to be in
They
position.
lost 7 in a row before last night.
Yeah. And they got a little bit of help. I mean, at least it's solo home runs, but Mick Abel's been throwing bullpen sessions to other teams out there recently. I mean, he's just been getting teed
He's
off on.
too aggressive. He's too aggressive. He
I think
needs
he just
to.
relies on the fastball too much. Like that's his best pitch, and he relies on it too much. He doesn't have. It's not like he has that. I mean, Christopher Sanchez's changeup's one of the best pitches in baseball right now of any pitcher, of like a signature pitch. So
Yeah.
obviously, Aaron Nola, when he's in his prime, he has that curveball that he can lean on. Wheeler's just got an array of pitches. I mean, if we look around the league, like Paul Skeens knows what, like every pitch in the toolbox. So
Yeah.
pitchers just get it done differently by
Shohei.
themselves.
Well, now that he's back as a pitcher, let's talk about Shohei's splitter. That's a big
Yeah,
signature
I
pitch.
mean, yeah, there's different pitches. I mean, I sent you on Instagram. Aroldis Chapman has accounted for 48% of all the 103 mile per hour fastballs
Yeah, I saw
thrown in
that. That's
MLB history.
wild. That's a
Isn't
wild.
what's the other crazy stat? Wasn't Dusty Baker involved in like 25% or what was it, 4% of like MLB games of all time?
Oh yeah, something like that. But getting back to the Phillies,
Just a
so
random stat that I had off the top of my head. But yeah, no, pitchers all get it done in different ways. So I feel like Mick Abel's issue right now is he's relying on a pitch that's like too easy that he hasn't been able to adjust with in the majors. I mean, and this is what we talked about pumping the brakes a little bit. Like he looked good in his second start, which made me excited because it was versus a better lineup. But the first start, I mean, was versus one of the worst offenses in the league. And now you're playing against two of the best offenses in the league, and you can see what happens, and it can happen very quickly to you. I mean, when you got guys like Juan Soto, Kyle Tucker, coming up to bat. Who was it that was doing it to him for the Cubs? Was it Ian Happ that had the 2 home runs? It's it may not even be the best baseball player on the other players on the other team, but
so I mean, if we look at McAble's first starts here in the bigs, his first start 5 innings.
I remember his first start off the top of my head. It was 6.5 innings. He had 84 thrown strike or 84.
Oh, yeah, no, it was six innings even, 5 hits, no earned runs,
0 walks,
9 strikeouts. No walks. His next start 5 1/3, 1 earned run, which it should have been 0. And then you got lit up a bit by Chicago. 4 innings, 3 earned runs. Bounced back against Miami. 5 innings, 1 earned run, and then last night 3 innings, 4 earned runs. All solo homers. A true Aaron Nola performance. But he's very young. He's a rookie. This is. I think he has good stuff. I think he'll eventually develop.
If we're looking at the 2 prospects that have came to the majors for the Phillies this year, and we compare them, obviously it's hard to compare a position player with, especially a position player that's getting thrust around all different types of positions in Otto Kemp right now. But who do you think has more longevity to help this team in the majors and has more of an outlook for the majors? And I feel like that's a hard conversation.
I think that's a bit tough. I
feel like it's hard to tell because there's also a harder. I mean, I guess I don't know if I would say that because the infield for the Phillies is pretty set too. That's why Otto Kemp's kind of getting outfield looks too. But for him to carve out one of these infield spots is going to be hard, especially the way that Alec Boehm's playing. I mean, maybe Bryson Stott, but he's not a true second baseman in Otto Kemp. He's been playing first base, but McAble's going against. I mean, besides Aaron Nola's struggles, he's trying to get over the hump of like 5 different guys in his way to the path of being a starter in this rotation.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of pathway to being a starter, it's going to be tough because not only is the current rotation pretty full, once Nola comes back, but then you also have Andrew Painter on the horizon. For Otto Kemp, I mean, we're talking about him splitting time with Max Kepler in left field, which I think that job will not be hard to win out over Max Kepler of all people. So, but in terms of like performance,
I don't know. Max Kepler's been balling recently. I mean,
he's been doing better, but still, he's a lot older. Otto Kemp is much younger.
The thing with Max Kepler is I've been talking about it. It's been the theme, and it sounds like I'm just being really redundant. But Max Kepler, I'm down for them to move off him as the starter, but I want him to be on the roster because I actually think he would, like I said, for the 7th time now. I think he would be a prime off the bench bat for you to bring in situations.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Kemp winning the starting job over him. But in terms of how they've both performed thus far and confidence in them moving forward, I think they're right about the same. We've seen some great performances out of Mick Abel, and he's currently sporting a modest ERA of 3.4. We've seen some great performances out of Otto Kemp. He's currently sporting a modest batting average of 260. I think they're right there in terms of like current talent and potential. So I think it's like pretty even, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a spot for Otto Kemp. They just brought Buddy Kennedy back up because he used this loophole in his contract to get back to the majors, so they brought him back up. But I mean, I don't feel any confidence in the Weston Wilsons or the Buddy Kennedys to be a utility guy for this team. So I'll take that off. So Otto Kemp could carve out a role as a utility guy for now, and then maybe blossom into something bigger in the future. He's been pretty good. I feel like both him and Mick Abel have had like a couple outlier really good performances, but outside of that have kind of been modest. But that's kind of the expectation that you have of any type of prospect. I mean, look how rough Jackson Holiday when he first came up to the majors was.
Yeah.
He was actually really good for the Orioles. Pete Crow Armstrong was like horrible last year. Looked horrific, and I never really watched him before he came out to the majors, so people were saying like, nah, he's good. He's just going through a slump or whatever, trying to adjust. And I was like, dude, I don't see anything that makes this guy good. And then
Yeah,
now,
he's been going
now he's
crazy.
like a top
I
five
think
MVP
the
candidate.
super long last name on the jersey is amusing to me too. But to talk about another young player on the Phillies, a guy who's been up in the bigs for a few years now, although his first year up in the bigs, I think he only pitched 3 innings in the regular season. A guy I really, really want to talk about because I've been high on him a lot, and he's really showing it now, and that's Orion Kerkering. You know, because not only is he pitching well now, but he's doing what I've been waiting to see, where it seems like the Phillies have kind of made him their closer, at least for now. You know, we've seen him close out the past 2 games that needed to be closed out. I think it was Kerkering. We haven't seen Romano close out games as much lately. And it excites me because we've never really seen this in the history of the Phillies. At least I haven't. And I can't even think of an example where we had a reliever start out his career in Philly at a young age, become the closer, and stay as the closer for a longevity of time. All the other, famous Phillies closers, they either didn't start their careers in Philly, or they didn't spend a whole lot of time in Philly. You know, the Mitch Williams, the Jonathan Papelbon, the Brad Lidges, the Tug McGraws, the Billy Wagners of the world. These are all guys. I don't think. I mean, I wasn't around for Tug McGraw, so I have to fact check that. But I'm pretty sure all of these guys, none of them started their
I want to bring up something.
Tug McGraw
funny.
did not start his career as a Philly. He started in 1965 with the Mets, and I
just want to bring up something funny real quickly, reliever wise. I put this parlay in and I bet on the Orioles live line, and the Orioles were the last leg in my parlay for it to hit, and I had Sir Anthony on the mound. The bases were loaded, and I needed him to hold on to the lead. And I just thought the situation that I was in was so funny as a Phillies fan, relying on Sir Anthony to come through for me one last time. And he ended up coming through for me and cashing my parlay. But I feel like relief pitchers, like you brought up Brad Lidge, I look up a montage of Albert Pujols' all-time home runs in the playoffs, and I'm seeing Brad Lidge being the pitcher. I saw Eric Gagne was the Cy Young back in the day, and his face-off with Barry Bonds, and Barry Bonds gets him in San Fran and hits a home run off him in the 9th inning. So I feel like besides Mariano Rivera, relief pitchers don't have a long longevity of being at the top of their game. I mean, Aroldis Chapman has bounced around from teams and has been at the top of his game forever. But,
yeah, I mean,
the
examples I think of when I think of a closer who is either started his career with a certain team or is known affiliated with that team is Rivera or Trevor Hoffman or I gave another example before we started the podcast, but I'm blanking right now. Craig Kimbrell in the beginning of his career, he started out.
I feel right now, who would be classified as what? Emmanuel Clase has been with Cleveland for his entire career, and he's he's really young.
Clase is a good current example, but and just think about this, our current franchise saves leader, which I hate this because why does it have to be this guy? Is Jonathan Papelbon?
All right, let me counter this to you. Wait,
I'll let you counter in a second, but real quick, just to finish that thought, Jonathan Papelbon. When you think of Jonathan Papelbon, you don't think of him as a Philly. You think of him as a Red Sox.
Yeah.
So our all-time leader in saves isn't even known as a Philly, and Kerkering at his young age. If he becomes the closer now, he has the chance where if he has a long career here, he can beat out Papelbon as the Phillies' all-time saves leader.
Well, we also talked about before the podcast where they had a gap of a couple decades. In the past 4 decades of Phillies baseball, they had 2 different decades of straight like 10-year runs of not making the playoffs. So they didn't have a lot of winning baseball for the opportunities to be there for saves to happen. I mean, they didn't make the playoffs from 2012 to 2022. They didn't make the playoffs from like the mid 90s to like the mid 2000s. So they had stretches of time where they didn't even have the opportunities to make that happen. But I look at the team stats on like, so I go to ESPN and I go to the team stats for the MLB, not the player stats, the team stats. And you know how I feel like there's at least 1 or 2 really frustrating Phillies games a week. Do you feel like you agree with that?
Yeah.
I feel like the trend is like they win 3 to 4 games a week, and then there's like 2 extremely frustrating losses that are like bad losses that like they're not just like they're either like a complete blowout with the bullpen at the end when they're winning the whole game, or they're never in the game at all and they're just like not even in competition and just getting completely thrusted. So I feel like that, and I'm like, where do they match up around the league when I look at the stats? I'm like, where's the missing pieces as to why like some of these games happen on random occasions for the Phillies? And I find it interesting. So let me go look at the stats before I even click into anything. If I just go to the main team stats that are on the ESPN website. So batting average as a team, the Phillies rank second in the entire league in batting average as a team with a 257 average. The Dodgers had the number 1 with 263. Pitching leaders, all MLB wins for pitching leaders in the MLB as a team combined. The Phillies are tied for third with 46. Home runs, that's where the Phillies are way down the line. The Phillies have the 15th most home runs, tied with the Astros hit in the league with 81, and the most in the league are the Dodgers with 120. So there's a 40 home run gap there. So that's one of the worst categories. Let's see where else. Earned run average. They have a couple pitchers that were pitching bad at times, so this isn't the most accurate stat. The Phillies are 17th between pitchers earned run average 3.93. So I feel like that's not an accurate with what the conversation that I'm going to tie this in at the end with. But runs batted in, another offensive stat. Phillies, they have 345, which is 8th in the entire league. So I've named 5 categories so far in their top 10, teetering top 5 in those categories. Saves in the league without a current, without a legit closer, but now they're transitioning into one. Saves combined in the league. The Phillies as a team rank 4th, and they're 1 save off from being tied for 1st in the entire league. And it's funny, the one team that's in front of them is the Royals, who have their old closer in Estevez. But as a team, the Phillies have 24 combined saves, which is 4th in the league or 2nd considered. Hits in the league as a team offensively, Phillies 674, which is 3rd in the entire league. Strikeouts amongst starting pitchers, the Phillies rank 2nd in 708. Stolen bases, where do the Phillies rank 6th with 65. And quality starts in the league amongst pitchers. The Phillies have a 4 quality start gap on the next person as the best team in the league with 41 quality starts. So I just named 12 categories, and the Phillies rank 10, and 10 of those rank top 10. But they still had these crazy blowout games. You know what I mean? I felt like that was interesting.
That is interesting. I wouldn't think with all the blowout wins.
But I brought that up not just out of the blue, saves wise, you're saying about how they're transitioning to having Kirkring, and then we felt like we had a big time gap and issue with Alvarado suspension. But the Phillies low key are still one of the top teams in combined saves throughout the league.
And here's the thing, Kirkring is still only 24 years old, right? And it seems like if he does end up becoming a longtime closer for the Phillies, he gets to start that role at age 24. That's the same age Mariano Rivera was when he started with as the closer for the Yankees, which obviously, he's no Mariano Rivera, but I mean, I think Kirkring is damn good, however. But before we end this topic of closers in Philly, I'm looking right now at the Phillies top 25 list in all-time saves leaders. Looking at the list, if I were to ask you to name as many players on this list as you can, I think you should be able to get 12 of these guys if you want to take a stab at getting 12 of the Phillies closers on the all-time saves leaderboard.
12 of the all-time closers. You're asking me to randomly bring up Phillies bullpen players off the top of my head, real quick.
I mean, all these 12 guys, like, well,
right, first
one of
person that
them,
comes
I
to
will
mind,
say this.
Let me throw this out there. Randy Wolf.
No, he was a starter.
I thought he was in the bullpen at some time.
No, I will say all of these guys are like known closers. One of them is more known as a setup guy. He mainly spent time as a setup pitcher. And then once the closer he typically was setting up left, he was thrusted into the role as closer.
All right, so I got because it's tough because I'm thinking about like people that have played for other teams too.
They've
so
all played.
Let me think about like current guys that could potentially be on there. Maybe like Hector Neris. I feel like
Hector Neris is on there. Hector Neris is 8th all time with 84 saves.
The tall, the tall pitcher from back in the day, Ryan Madsen.
Yeah, that's the guy I was referring to who was a setup pitcher. I'll also give you this. In order to make this list, to be 25th, you need 27 saves as a Philly. If that also helps you.
All right, I'm not going to name all 25, but I'll name some.
Well, yeah, I want to see if you can get 12 though. I am curious.
The dude that's on the radio for 90. For
yeah,
97.
Yeah, I know you're talking about Ricky Bottalico, right?
The old. He was a Mets pitcher, right? More famous for being the Mets pitcher, Billy Wagner.
Yep. Yeah, Billy Wagner's 11th with 59 saves. I think he only spent
Papelbon, obviously.
Papelbon's number 1 with 123.
The other guy, he does broadcast work for the Phillies too. I'm pretty sure Mitch Williams, right?
Yeah. Mitch Williams, number 4 all time. He was our closer in the World Series in '93. I mean, you're forgetting. You haven't mentioned the 2 most obvious ones yet.
I mean, Brad Lidge, obviously. I'm not going to name
Brad Lidge.
Brad Lidge.
And our other World Series winning closer,
Todd McGraw. I mean, this is people that we've already talked about, like on this exact podcast.
Yeah.
Podcast. I was trying to name.
I will say there are.
Is Alvarado on there?
Yeah, Alvarado's 20th with 37.
Is Sir Anthony by any chance like on there?
Sir Anthony is 22nd with 28 saves.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think in order to hit 12, I think you're missing. Yeah, I think you just need like 1 more, 2 more to hit 12.
It's tough, bro. Bullpen. I mean, if we're talking baseball players, relief pitchers is probably the hardest of any.
Yeah, we're talking closers. I'll say one guy, we brought him in from the Yankees in the mid-2000s, and his nickname is a reference to a popular 80s movie or TV show. Also, and that show or movie was also referenced in the movie Ted. And then there's another guy from the mid-2000s. There's who's 2nd all time. He's also from the mid-2000s. There's the guy who's 3rd all time, who it's a pretty popular name. And then all the other guys, I just have no idea who they are.
All right. So I got enough, I feel like, to feel comfortable with my spot. But
yeah.
I named all those team stats. Another interesting team stat when I was going through was when I looked at the individual players and how they lined up. So home runs, and of all the main stats, home runs and runs batted in, they were 8th, but home runs was pretty much this category that they were really lacking, and earned run average, even though they had all the really good pitching stats as a team, earned run average was like 17th, but home runs, they were down the line. They only have one guy literally over double-digit home runs on the roster.
Yeah. Oh, no. Trust me. I've been locked in on this because Schwarber is so far ahead in home runs right now. And
But Bohm's
you
been
have a
hitting.
lot of guys with 9 right now, or like teetering around that area.
Yeah, but that's the thing that I wanted to say. Kepler's been hitting a couple bombs here and there. Bohm's been hitting some bombs here and there. Turner's been hitting some bombs here and there. Castellanos been hitting some bombs here and there. And it's been
Harper
just
was
enough.
getting bombs, but now he's hurt and he's stuck at 9, I think.
Well, it's just like enough to sprinkle out to match what Kyle Schwarber does, and then they're getting some extra base hits. I mean, the way that Trey's playing is just ridiculous. I feel like Bohm, Castellanos, and Trey are really carrying the weight for what's going on.
And they all get hated on so much by the fan base. It makes no sense to me. Like everyone,
I looked through the stats of Trey Turner. Trey Turner's literally like top 5 in every category as a shortstop, but like no one will say that he.
Yeah, they all act like he stinks.
He's having a better season than Mookie Betts right now. He has the same amount of home runs as Mookie Betts. He has a significantly higher batting average than Mookie Betts. I don't know if the RBIs look like matched up with each other, but. And then I see him ranked as like the 9th best shortstop in the entire league. I just think it's pretty ridiculous. And I feel like he just gets so underrated. He's somebody for me. I have recognized that he's had struggles, but I've never been somebody that has talked down on him because I just know the caliber player that he is. And I think that Trey Turner with Bryce Harper out is the best player on the Phillies. And I don't think there's any question about that. I think Kyle Schwarber with what he does is great and can be the most impactful at times. But as an overall baseball player, when Bryce Harper's not on the field, Trey Turner is the best baseball player.
Yeah, without Harper on the field, yeah, I would say so.
Like what Schwarber does is
out
very
of position
impactful,
players though, but that's out of position players. I think outside of Harper,
yeah, Zach Wheeler's Zach Wheeler's better. Zach Wheeler right now is better than Bryce Harper. Is the best Philly.
I think that's a tough debate, but
Zach Wheeler is just always on point though. Like Bryce is always on point too, but he's like not the same exact Bryce that we remember him to be. Like we know what we're getting from Zach Wheeler every single time, and even with a couple of the tough starts that he's had this year, he's still evened out to be the face of the best pitching rotation in the entire league. So, yeah, I mean. Currently, right now with this team, we love to go through around this time of year and start thinking about the trade deadline and maybe putting some packages together to make some things happen. Is there any guys that you see out there that you could target that you would maybe want on your team, or do you feel comfortable with where this team is currently at?
I think they need another bullpen arm. I do, especially.
What would you ideally like? What type of bullpen arm? Like, are we thinking about?
I just want a lefty. I want a good lefty arm out of the bullpen. I like Kirkering as a righty. Romano I now have some confidence in him, not as much as when he went through that streak of not giving up a run. I was like, we fixed him. Now it's like, he's a little shaky, but I have confidence in him. Jose Ruiz. No, not Jose Ruiz. Who was the one who came? Joe Ross.
And they also we didn't talk about.
I can't stand Joe Ross. Joe Ross, get him the hell
out. He pitched a bunch last night. He gave up.
He's not good. It's not just because the last.
Well, they brought out Taiwan the other night and let him throw.
Maybe we do need a righty. I don't know. I think we need maybe a righty and a lefty. Kirkering, Strom, and maybe Tanner Banks are like the 3 relievers I have confidence in.
They just lost Hernandez too. They optioned him and then he left. So they do not have Hernandez in their bullpen anymore, Carlos Hernandez. So
yeah, the bullpen's a mess. We definitely need bullpen help. And you know what? If Kemp plays well enough, I wouldn't hate possibly trading Max Kepler for a bullpen arm. I know you want him as a bench piece, but I would not be opposed to that.
What do you think, Marsh? Like, I feel like Marsh always tricks us.
Marsh is starting to pick it up, man.
I know, but he tricks us. It's the same story every time. It's a month of good baseball, and then we're not talking about then he goes back to bat in 230. We're talking about he goes back to bat in 125. Can't hit a single ball versus a lefty.
I think either like Marsh or Kepler for a bullpen arm, and I'd be pretty happy with that. Especially with the way
bullpen arm over like an outfield piece.
Yeah, if Kemp continues to play really well, then yeah.
What about trying to scan the Diamondbacks on Eugenio Suarez, who just hit his 300th and 301st career home runs?
I mean, there's a few ways they can go with it.
Do you think they could carve out a path, like with a trade? Do you think they could carve out a path to somehow, you know how Bryce made that comment saying that he would move from first base if they could get a legit first baseman? Do you think there would be a way where they would move a bunch of revolving doors and like move Bryce to the outfield, move Boom to first if the best player they could get would be a third baseman? Do you think they would do that, or do you think that's just like too much going on?
No, I would not be opposed to that at all.
Would you trade for Arenado? Would you try and trade for
who's been
Suarez,
traded?
Arenado? You could have possibly had Devers. I mean, Alex Bregman, I know he's hurt right now. They should have just signed Alex Bregman. That just would have solved all these pieces, and there would have been no assets needed to give up.
Instead, they went out and got Kepler. He's just a terrorist at this point.
I mean, he's at least it's not like he's just hitting singles when he actually gets a hit, though. Like when he gets a hit, it's a home run or a double. So I'll give him that. It's not because at times where it'll feel like Brandon Marsh, like when he's slumping, he'll just like not get any big hits at all. It'll just be like, little dribblers when he actually gets a hit. So, but do you think that the issue with like the non-evenness of their power hitting, do you think that's actually going to arise to where they need to address that, or you can bank?
No, I mean, I don't hate just having a bunch of like guys who have decent pop but nothing crazy, and then having.
I think Trey is just like the perfect offensive player for this team, as in like he provides random pop at times, but like he just gets on base, runs the bases like really well, and just like can just facilitate things that way. And always gives you the opportunity to be able to play small ball if you need to, but can provide pop if he at random times.
Yeah.
But before we get out of here, we're running out of time. I know you were a huge fan of the highlight that we saw from Friday night of the double slide into home plate.
I forgot all about that. Yeah, we got.
Did we give a meatball of the week?
No, we didn't even do meatball of the week.
All right, let's give the meatball of the week, and then
I'll do it real quick, just because we gotta get out of here. All right, time for my meatball of the week, and my meatball of the week is Tommy Pham, because Tommy Pham tried to fight a fan. Got into a heat.
Was that Tommy Pham?
Yeah, it was Tommy Pham. I had to look at the replies to see which player that even was.
Wait, so he's just got anger issues because he's the same dude that was trying to fight over fantasy football with Jock Peterson. Was it Jock Peterson?
I don't know if it's Jock Peterson, but yeah, Tommy Pham. He's a loose cannon, and now he's trying to fight a fan. So, Tommy Pham, you're my meatball of the week. Okay,
would you trade for Tommy Pham to be the enforcer in the Phillies locker room?
I wouldn't hate that. And we also need more people of color on the Phillies.
He's also the Pirates lineup is so bad. He was like their cleanup hitter for the first couple weeks of the season.
That's kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, the reason why the Phillies haven't won the World Series yet with this squad is it's just a bunch of white guys. We need less white guys
because they play too much Fortnite in the locker room.
That's still one of the funniest.
Was that Carlos Santana that said that?
Yeah, it was Carlos Santana.
They should trade him back. They should trade back for him.
I would not hate Santana right now.
Anyhow, get Andrew McCutchen and Carlos Santana back at the trade deadline. We're going back to the World Series.
What if we bring back Tommy Joseph as well?
Tommy John, Jamie Moyer at 70 years old, throwing slow pitch 55 miles per hour.
Dude, I'll tell you what, Jamie Moyer still probably has some nasty junk. But going back to the
all
right, come on.
Yo, clip that. Oh my.
Going back to the double slide. Iconic.
Top of your head. Past 10 years from 2015 to 2025. Top 5 Philadelphia sports plays off the top of your head.
Okay. In no particular
I don't want to hear the Philly special, and I don't want to hear the strip sack. I want to.
Oh wait, no. Are we talking Phillies or Philly sports?
Philadelphia sports, but I don't want like the most obvious ones. Give me a little bit.
Okay. Okay. Well, all right. So I'll go to stay with Phillies, I'll go Bryce Harper, walk-off grand slam. I'm going to go
There's the
regular
Cubs,
season.
right?
I'm going to go regular season. Yeah. Bryce Harper, walk-off grand slam against the Cubs. I'm going to go actually, if I say regular season, it's a bit tough. Nothing obvious, so no Saquon hurdle. Jesus. Vince Velasquez throwing out a runner going home to win the game when Vince Velasquez was playing in the outfield. That's an all-time Phillies play over the past 10 years. Trying to think Eagles. Jordan Matthews, game-winning touchdown in overtime against the Cowboys. Any one of Carson Wentz's plays from the
I know
27.
you're forgetting one that I just remember that's like so buried in the bag, and it happened this year. Edmundo Sosa's home run robbery. That was like a low key.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. In terms of like regular season, I don't know if there's like another like Phillies one. There's so many great Phillies playoff moments from the past, from recent years, like the Bryson Stott grand slam, Castellanos and Harper going back to back against the Braves. Any one of Castellanos' sliding grabs, which finally dropped one last night.
My favorite, the JT inside the park home run in the playoffs was iconic.
Yeah, that's a big playoff moment. Yeah, it's definitely tougher if you think regular season, but listen, in terms of Philly sports plays, exclude regular or postseason, going with like just excluding the Philly special because that one is so obvious. I'm gonna go Saquon in no particular order. Saquon hurdle, Harper walk-off grand slam against the Cubs. What was the other one I said? I'll also go Hoskins home run against the Braves, Harper and Costi going back to back against the Braves.
Should have just said regular season moments.
Huh?
Should have just did regular season moments.
Honestly. I couldn't think of enough regular season moments. And finally, I will go just to exclude Super Bowl plays, I'll go Saquon Barkley's touchdown run against the Commanders in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, that play was – I was there for that play, so that play –
And the reason why that play was so great is because the way the game started, it was like an 8-minute long drive by the Commanders where they walked away with 3 points. And it was like, even though they only got a field goal, 8-minute long drive, good start for the Commanders. And then first play, Saquon Barkley to the house.
I'm trying another iconic regular season Philadelphia sports moment past 10 years was the Titans game when AJ scored the 40-yard touchdown. It got called back, and then the next play he scores another 40-yard touchdown. That was iconic.
Or what about the game against the Steelers?
The Steelers point was iconic.
Or Devontae Smith, his rookie year, the touchdown grab over Surtain.
That's not even that play's crazy, but that's not even his best. Like the Washington plays that he was making, the plays that he's made versus Washington. He even said himself, someone asked him best catches of his career, and he said any of the ones versus Washington. There was like a pilot of like 8 of them. I
would say
basketball. I'm trying to think about the Sixers. I'm trying to think about the
real quick in terms of Jalen Hurts, his biggest highlight reel play. I would say the touchdown against the Saints when he juked that defender out to put the game away. I would say that's Jalen Hurts' biggest.
I like the Vikings run better than that. The 40-yard one where he gets hit at the 5-yard
line. I was there at that game. But I like the Saints one a bit better.
I'm trying to think of a Sixers like iconic like single.
The only Sixers one I can think of is T.J. McConnell buzzer beater over Carmelo Anthony to win the game.
Yeah, that was hilarious. TJ McConnell's balling on another level. Did you see that he has the most points, assists, steals, and another category of a bench player in the history?
Yeah, you sent that to me. Yeah.
So it is crazy.
Shout out to McConnell, man. I hope he gets his ring tonight. I hope he does.
Your favorite three before we get out of here. since we had the NBA draft coming up, maybe we'll do an NBA draft show. I'll reach out to Elevation 520 Sports.
If I'm available Wednesday night, I don't know if I
we'll
will be.
figure that out and we'll get some content. But we'll either do a podcast and a draft show or just a podcast next week. But in the honor of the NBA draft, your favorite three. Give me three NBA, not NBA, Sixers specifically NBA role players since you've been watching the Sixers.
Okay. Willie Green.
Willie Green. Okay.
Willie Green.
Willie Green's still the Pelicans coach, isn't he?
Maybe. I was a big Willie Green fan as a kid.
You liked his socks? The socks he used to rock back in the day growing up?
I don't even remember all that.
Knee-high socks.
But I did like Willie Green as a kid.
He is the Pelicans coach.
Marco Bellinelli.
He's another one. He had remember his game-winning shot back in the day?
Yeah.
Marco Bellinelli.
Yeah, Marco Bellinelli. And I'm going to go.
Wait, you're about to not say his name, which is going to really, I feel like you're just forgetting him.
Well,
there's an obvious one. I thought you were just going to name right off the bat, but maybe you're just not going with the most obvious one.
Well, I think it also depends on somebody's definition of a role player. But third, God, who would I go with? Korver. That's number Korver. One for me. Korver's number one for me.
Yeah, you didn't say him. Same era. Maybe you're just not defining him as a role player. You just see him as differently because he was like the top three offensive options on the team. Lou Williams.
Yeah, I was thinking. Well, I was thinking Lou Will. But I mean, I don't know. Like he wasn't. I think I'm just salty about Lou Will just because
there's actually a lot of people.
He's like not even known as a Sixer, and he won six-man awards in other cities. So I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I was a big Lou Will fan, but I think I'm just like a little bit salty about that.
I don't know, bro. I don't know if I would say that. There's like Mitchell and Ness, Lou Williams throwback Sixers Mitchell and Ness jerseys. So I don't know.
Is there really? Yeah, yo, that's crazy that we're that far into the future that Lou Williams Sixers.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is like, think about how many players. When I say role players, think about how many players that you have to choose from. Like, randomly popped in my head, like Montrezl Harrell when he played for the Sixers. He was like sixth man of the year. Came off with like 2 years.
Greg Monroe.
Yeah, random dudes like that. My favorite three role players, Lou Williams is definitely in there. Kyle Korver's a good one. I didn't really think of off the top of my head.
Oh, you know who I really liked? James Ennis.
James Ennis.
Yeah. Dude, I was a big James Ennis fan during his year or two over here.
Who was the bald forward that used to get hella rebounds for the Sixers?
In what era?
The early 2010s.
The bald forward?
Yeah, I forget his name.
I don't even know. At first, I was thinking of maybe Matt Geiger, but that was way before the 2010s.
I feel like not me personally, but a lot of people loved Matisse when he was here for that short.
I liked Matisse.
I was going to say Dario, but he's not like my all-time favorite, but he was impactful.
Dario's up there for me.
Kyle Korver's a good one. I would definitely put Kyle Korver in there with Lou Williams. They were around the same time. And then
Korver was before Lou Will. Korver was with Iverson. Lou Will was that squad of like Thad Young, Evan Turner, Drew Holiday, etc.
Lou Williams got drafted early, bro. I think you're
Elton Brand.
I think you're sleeping on how early Lou Williams.
Maybe, but like that's like when you think of Lou Will on the Sixers, you think of him with that squad.
When do you think Lou Williams got drafted?
05 to 06. So, oh my God, yeah, he also played with AI.
That's what I'm saying, bro. He was on. They were
all.
But
like, he's not like known for that era of Sixers basketball. He's known for like
I remember John Salmons, dude. I remember John Salmons. That was
I hated Salmons. If you were to ask me who's my least favorite Sixers role player of all time, it was John Salmons. When I was a kid, I used to say John Salmons stinks like salmon. I fucking hated that guy, dude. He was awful.
That's clever, bro. I felt like that really hit home for him.
I was a little kid. Leave me alone. But anyway, we got to head out here. We're an hour 40 in.
Let me just get one last role player in here. It was Reggie Evans, the ball.
Reggie
Evans was the classic.
Get out of here, Reggie Evans.
Remember Maurice Spates? The Sixers drafted him, and then he like randomly became good with the Warriors and was hitting those mid-range shots in the finals.
Yeah.
I remember I was so happy that he was the last person to take a shot in the Cavs finals for the Warriors to lose, and that was their last hope. They had no chance of winning, but he took the last shot. But yeah,
well, talk about former Sixers. Isaiah Joe is the guy that the Sixers really should have continued to develop, and now he's on the Thunder.
Yeah, but they play like 13 guys, so it's like he plays like a role, but like that's like even if he was on any other team making impact, like he's like a 15-minute guy. Like that is what it is. It's not like the worst. But thank you guys for tuning in to episode 102 of the Paisan Sports podcast. Hopefully we'll be celebrating some success for the Sixers for years to come with what they do in the draft on Wednesday. We'll possibly be doing a draft show through Elevation 5280 Sports, or we'll be doing a reactionary podcast, either or this upcoming week. So stay tuned for that. We didn't really touch on the Eagles. There wasn't too much to talk about this week, but we'll get back when there is some news to talk about with the Eagles. And then as for the Phillies, we'll just keep you updated on the race for the NL East with the rubber match of the series between them and the Mets, their rivals. Oh, also, real quick note, did you know in MLB history, the matchup that's been played the most of two teams is the Mets and the Phillies?
I didn't know that. No. Wait, no, that can't even be possible, though, because the Mets didn't exist until like the 60s.
Look it up.
Really? All right. Well, I'll look that up after we end things.
You got to think about because you're not like equating like there's other teams that existed forever, but like them specifically playing each other.
Yeah, but well, okay. Let me think about this. The Pirates used to be in the NL East, so that's a matchup that would have happened a lot before the Mets. The Nationals, before that they were the Expos. I don't think they were around all that long anyhow. The Marlins didn't exist until the 90s. The Braves, were the Braves not always in the NL East? I don't know, but oh well.
All right, well, thank you guys for tuning into the Paisan Sports podcast, and we'll be back at the beginning of next week with some more Philadelphia sports topics to cover.